Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be taking a first look at Kenny, who is going to be a Telltale character coming to RTS. Kenny is going to be a premier recruit, but more information on that to follow. Visually, Kenny looks a little bit different than what we saw before, but he's just kind of geared up. If you look at the art on the left hand side, you can see the things you're kind of used to with Kenny. It's like the shirt, the necklace, the bands and stuff like that, and of course his very iconic hat. He's almost as iconic as Clementine's hat. Now, he is an alert character. We can see he's holding that pistol. It doesn't look like it is a special weapon, so it looks like you could potentially put whatever weapon you want in his hands. So that also potentially means down the line there could be like a special Kenny weapon. Well, we'll have to wait and see. We'll check out his stats as a level 720 limit break 3 character. With no lieutenants, he has got 25,074 attack, 12,537 defense, and 12,537 HP. I will say that is the highest base attack in the game. If you compare it to someone else who has extremely high attack stat in Shiva, she has 22.5k base attack without lieutenant system. Obviously that's going to scale up massively, buffs on top, so on and so forth. Very nice. He is an alert character holding that pistol, of course. Considered a damage dealer, no doubt, with that attack stat. Mythic character, and he is going to be joining the Telltale Season 1 Allegiance. Now first off, we'll look at Kenny's adrenaline rush, and it is called Stubborn Onslaught. It is a 66 AP cost rush. Make 2 attacks of 400% damage, 800% total against 2 enemies each. This character gets 100% attack for the rest of combat. Now this is looking like a pattern when it comes to the actual attack style. 2 attacks of X percentage of damage against 2 enemies each. This is huge. This is double the base damage of Sandy's Rush. If anyone remembers Sandy's Rush, actually I think Sandy's Rush might have been 240%. I'm not 100% certain there, but it works the same way. But it's still 800% total. It's doing 4 separate attacks of 400%, which is going to be crazy. We're going to obviously show how it works, but then he's going to get 100% attack for the rest of combat. That means any follow-up signature moves, secondary rushes, basic attacks are going to do even more damage. It's going to get kind of crazy. So we have got the adrenaline rush here of Kenny. Now, of course, if he is used with the right characters in the team, you can guarantee those hits being crit attacks. And I would say that is a very good idea. It would be as if he was having 100% crit weapon in his hands, which alert characters cannot get. Now, we're going to have to talk about this rush before I do it, because I'm pretty sure it's going to blow this team up. It's going to do a lot of damage. It's going to do a lot of damage. And of course, with alert characters, you could potentially have like a splash weapon, and it would proc with these hits as well. We're going to do the rush. And as expected, it is going to blow up the entire team with 4 attacks. So you can kind of see that 100% attack boost being mainly for teams that are really hard to take down, where you might be able to take out 1 or 2 characters with that rush. He's going to be amplified for any future rushes, which are going to obviously be able to deal with characters a lot easier. Characters like Angel, for instance, who do get a massive defense buff, this is basically combating that directly, and it basically brings them up to like normal levels on par with each other. So anything else that comes in on Angel, like a defense down, or if that defense buff does get removed, well, yeah, she's in a lot of trouble. If we look at the upgrades, you can see grade 2, he gets 100% attack boost per attack. So it goes from 200% up to 300%. And at grade 4, it gets an upgrade where it gets plus 25% attack for the rest of combat. That is going to be the initial introduction of that buff. Then at limit break 1, it gets another 100% attack boost per attack. So it goes from 300% per attack to 400%. And at LB3, it goes from 25% attack boost for the rest of combat, which is actually still pretty good, to 100%, which is just absolutely crazy for sure. The damage output of this character is going to be next level on that initial rush. The second rush is just going to be absolutely nuts. Obviously, there are going to be, some things that can deal with this. If Reflect is going to be an issue, so there are definitely some counters You need to gear out Kenny and make sure he's got the right characters in his team so that these things aren't as big a problem. But for sure, Kenny is living up to that damage dealer role that he has been assigned. Now we'll check out Kenny's signature move, and the first thing that I drew to my attention was that the picture of it is a magazine that would go into a rifle, but he's an alert character. I guess maybe, is it a rifle or maybe a shotgun on his back? I don't know about it. Maybe it's just a really, really thick clip for an actual pistol. We'll have to see. Think first. It has an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 2 turns. Number of uses unlimited. This character gets focus for 3 turns. Attack a single enemy for 200% damage. So he is going to get the focused first. I'm not really sure how that's going to do anything when it comes to focus coming first before the damage. I'm actually not really sure. If you have any ideas, please leave them in the comments down below. But that attack can obviously crit. It can obviously get guaranteed crits based on other characters, like I said before. And it can actually proc weapons based, be it either the defensive weapon or Kenny's weapon that you're going to put in his hand. So again, could potentially splash, so on and so forth. Okay, so it is turn 1, and I will just be able to freely do the signature move straight away. I'm going to attack Garrett up here and do the signature move. We'll do a bit of damage, as you can see, and we have managed to take Garrett out. Now, other things have happened after taking him out, which seem to have a big potential in speeding up combat for this character and obviously the teams he is on. The potential, like I say, of Kenny as a damage dealer is extremely high. Now we'll look at those upgrades on his signature move, and you can see at grade 3 it gets -1 to cooldown, so it goes from a 3-turn cooldown down to a 2-turn cooldown. At grade 5 it gets a -1 to starting cooldown, so it goes from turn 2 to turn 1 on the starting cooldown. And at limit break 2 it gets a 200% attack actual addition, so until limit break 2 he is just going to give himself focus for 3 turns. Obviously at that point it isn't going to be as powerful, so limit break 2 seems to be where you want to get if you want to get like the best minimum out of Kenny, in my opinion. Because you saw the potential of what happens when he does take out a character, it is very important that you get that damage boost on there for sure if you want to use him as a damage dealer. Generally speaking, it is better to have a character as high up in the limit breaks anyway, just because their base stat will be high. But Kenny has really good base stat anyway, so you don't necessarily have to get him to grade 2 to utilize his rush. Limit break 2 will just be able to give you more chance of other things happening in his kit, do more damage off of that first turn with the signature move, which is obviously very nice indeed. I think so far, so good on the amount of damage output that Kenny's doing, and I'm still kind of questioning why the focus comes first here on the attack. Sometimes this happens to stop things from being a problem. For instance, if a character has bonus HP come first, then they do the attack, which I think Ghost does. It has the potential to stop reflect happening, but my mind is just completely blank here, and I'm pretty sure when I read the comments in this video, someone's just going to be like, whoa, Lockdown, there's this thing you can do, and there's this particular thing on the defense team if you attack this. I'm just going to be facepalming basically that I've forgotten it. But the damage is nice, 200%. Like I say, it can crit and it can guarantee crit as long as Clementine's there. Now next up we have the Mythic Abilities of Kenny, and I like the visuals here. You can see it's basically his art just with lots of fire around it. I like it. These are his passives, and these are going to be nice boosts. Agility is going to boost everything. Basic attacks, signature move, rush is going to get boost everything. As long as you've got that signature move to LB2, obviously where it does damage, it will boost it. That's going to be a nice boost there. A Flawed Man's Tale. When attacking, 100% chance this character and all Telltale Season 1 teammates get absolute defense and reduce reflected and counter damage to 0. Did I say reflect was going to be an issue? What was I talking about? And the fact that he gives this to all Telltale characters as well, if that is a theme with that rush, that is so good and so important, because that is going to be something that would be horrendous for multi-hit rushes. Horrendous for multi-hits at all. But it does only work for Telltale characters. So if you wanted to bring in someone like Laurie on the team, she'd still have run the risk of nuking herself on a reflect. But any Telltale characters and Kenny himself, no problem at all. The next one, you can already see what it says, and I know there's a lot of fans of this passive. Weapon Expert. Stat boosts from basic weapon effects are 30% more effective on this character. This does mean that if someone has a 10% boost on a weapon of attack, they will get a 13% boost. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but if someone has a 50% boost, it will now be a 62% boost. If it's a 55% boost, my maths isn't that quick. It's going to be a little bit more than 62%. So, but this is really nice. It does mean that you're going to amplify the amount of damage he's going to do. You could potentially tank him out a little bit better as well. Like his HP boost on a weapon or something would actually be boosted as well. So very nice indeed. The last passive on his kit is called Determination. And he has a base resistance to debilitating status effects. 40%. And this is every single debilitating status effect that is in the game, of which I believe there are 6. It is Daze, Normalize, Impair, Confuse, Taunt, and Stun. It is basically all the ones that stop you from utilizing part of a character's kit, be it their rush, signature move, be it their specialist skill, be it actually being able to attack. It isn't things that stop you from doing as well. For instance, attack down. It's not going to have any resistance potential against attack down. Now, what I will check out, I will put a mod on him that is 60% or higher to see if it stacks together. I'm guessing it will not, because that would work like Mr. Lou's specialist skill, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so I figured the best way to show you this would be in a very kind of like narrow scenario, and that would be using characters that have a guaranteed reflect, which would be Mercer. So I'm going to use my signature move against Mercer. And you're going to see that his passive reflect, which he has on any targeted effect, should get nullified where I'm still alive. I am indeed. So as you can see, I took 0 damage, and that's because I changed any of the reflect or counter damage down to 0. This is going to work for every Telltale character on every single hit they do. So on the multi-hit rushes, awesome. What I'm going to do is defend here. I have got a 60.5% resist to confuse on Kenny. And Laupo has a guaranteed crit off of her signature move, and obviously that's going to proc her specialist skill, which is confused. It's a bit of a weird way of doing it. I had to find someone who had first turn control who wasn't a controller, because that would reduce the actual resist. Now, it is worth noting, if I resist it, it means that the mod is overtaking the passive. But if it says immune, it means they're stacking. Okay, so I'm gonna just defend, and I think I actually got confused. So that's just showing you that it does obviously not stack together, which I didn't think it would. But you can prioritize a certain effect on Kenny that you obviously want to have your highest resist in. And I will say at the beginning of the fight, when this started, I did actually resist Laupo's passive, which is the taunt. And I don't have a taunt resist on Kenny. It's because he had that 40% chance to resist it. So we'll go straight into the upgrades, and you can see at grade 1 it gets the first half of a Flawed Man's Tale, which is the Telltale bonus, reducing counter and reflected damage down to 0, and that's a 50% chance. At grade 2 he gets the first half of Agility, so he gets a bit of a damage boost there. At grade 3 he gets the second half of a Flawed Man's Tale, which is actually kind of cool, so he gets the full Allegiance bonus very early, and that is actually really useful. As much as it's not helping Kenny do damage, it's massively improving his survivability for sure. If we go down, we can see the last 2 on the main grades. You can see Weapon Expert Part 1 comes in at grade 4, and that's going to give a 15% boost. That's not RNG, it's just a 15% boost. And then the same with Determination at grade 5. It's just going to be a 20% resistance to debilitating effects boost off of base. Now when we go into the limit breaks, you can see Agility 2 comes in, and that's going to be the damage boost. Weapon Expert 2 comes in and stacks up to 30%, and effectively that's going to be a damage boost because it will improve his weapon effectively, the attack stat basically. And then lastly, Limit Break 3, Determination 2 will go up to 40% resistance to debilitating effects. Now I don't think 40% is crazy, but I think the reason they did this was because they didn't want it to be as powerful as the specialist skill, which is Resilient, but it's still going to give you bonuses where you otherwise wouldn't have them. I think, again, like I said, it's always going to be meta issues when it comes to resistances. So you're always going to probably mod Kenny with the meta resist. You could potentially use Kenny where he's getting that taunt resist as well with other teams, you know, with the Clementine lead. So you could forego that and decide, hey, I want to have a bigger boost to confuse, and I'll take 40% to everything else. Now he is of course getting a 40% resist to something that actually not a lot of characters do, which is normalize. And that would stop his specialist skill from actually working. Let's take a look at what that specialist skill actually does. And it does look familiar. It does look a little familiar, but there is a little bit of a tweak. There is a tweak. It is follow up 2 once per turn when this specialist kills an enemy with an attack, active skill, signature move, or rush. They will receive a bonus action, just like Follow-Up 1. But this time around with Follow-Up 2, this character gets 100% AP when this procs. So it's basically like an Arav built into the rush, where Arav used to get 100% AP on his rush. It's now built into the specialist skill rather than it being built into the rush. This is obviously really nuts. The potential of this is really nuts. There are no doubt some counters in the game for this, so Kenny is going to run into issues when it comes to exhaust, and that is not a debilitating status effect, but that's where you could decide, I want to go for exhaust resist or I want to go for main resist to stop that being as much of an issue, and then I know that I can just blow up teams freely. So there's your mod of choice long term effectively, but in the meantime, until exhaust comes around, this is going to be crazy because you can easily get a first turn takedown like I was showing before. 200% damage on that signature move is a lot. So as mentioned, Kenny does not have an attached weapon in his hands, but if you team him up with the right characters, for instance, Clementine with all her stuns, and then we use a weapon that came out from War of Champions where you get bonus damage based on debilitating status effects being on the defensive team, you can get some crazy stuff going on with Kenny for sure. That War of Champions pistol looks like it's going to work great in his hands, no doubt. But otherwise, you could go for weapons that are based on the opponent's HP, stuff like that. You could potentially try and build one that deals damage to people who are on lower HP so he can actually take someone out who's already been whittled down a bit on that first turn, make his specialist skill proc. You've got options. So this was Gold Mythic Kenny, and I actually think this guy is quite a well-rounded character. Buffs his allegiance, does crazy damage for himself, and obviously that buff for his allegiance protects himself too. He is going to be susceptible to certain things, which I think you're going to have to prepare for. That's just the way it goes. But based on teammates that could come in, it could help him out a lot. You know, he isn't a one-man army. He's definitely going to need those teammates, but they're going to make him stronger. You know, other characters guaranteeing him crits like Clementine. The potential is pretty big here. The potential is pretty big. And honestly, when I first saw his visuals, I was like, I mean, it doesn't really feel like Kenny, but I'm kind of warm to it a little bit, if I'm honest. Because I saw the necklace, because I saw the shirt. Initially, I just saw all the armor. I was like, he didn't ever look like this, but if he did ever get the armor, he'd definitely wear it. He'd definitely wear it. And as long as he's got his hat, I can't really complain. Now, if you have any thoughts on Kenny, and again, any more thoughts on the Telltale Allegiance, please leave them in the comments down below. That is the end of my video, guys. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.